Hello, tubers. Welcome to yet another in the seemingly unending series of unscripted, unedited, train of thought videos from deep within the bowels of Dr. Jet's laboratory. Anyway, last time I talked to you guys, I talked about upcoming projects. So I thought I would talk about retired projects and projects that may get resurrected. I don't know. So we already discussed this guy, the Atlas Van Lines prototype, and it's too badly banged up to fix. I have other things, so it's going to go away. It's going to go over here for now. The next thing, I've had this for good God, I don't know, 20 years. It was made in Korea by RCMK. I don't know if they exist anymore, but this was called the Micro Mowgli. It was actually one of the first self-righting boats, and you can see it had a cutout here for a flood chamber that went in there. But it had this cool hardware with this rudder that just hung way the hell back there. And, God, I don't know. That might be a 6mm bearing and an 1/8" prop shaft and what looks to be like a 130 cable. So this thing was quite a little thing, but it may just languish forever. My grandchildren may be going about my stuff when I'm long gone and say, what the hell is this thing? Anyway, the Micro Mowgli. This is a cool boat. I actually have 2 new ones of these. I replaced these for a couple of reasons, but these are perfectly seaworthy. This is the MHZ Gecko. I modified it by putting a ball bearing in here, and I don't know if I have a interim bearing in here or not. I'd have to check it. But these things are just a hoot, and I liked them so much I bought 2 new ones. This one was actually the gel coat was shrinking, and these are just cracks in the gel coat. The fiberglass underneath there is unaffected. It's just that thin layer of gel coat shrunk. But you know, when you're 20, 25 years old, that stuff starts happening to you. Anyway, so and both of these are perfectly seaworthy. Bolt a motor in, put a receiver and a speed control, and bingo, you're off and rolling again. These were produced for a while, and they sold like crazy, and I don't know why they quit selling them, but this is the Micro Bolt, and this was a common little thing that sold everywhere. I put some shrink tube on here to seal it up. I actually put a turn fin on here, and it made it uncontrollable. You'd hit the throttle, and you'd instantly get a space shuttle launch, no matter what I did. Took the turn fin off, it ran great. So no turn fin on this puppy. So this guy's ready to go. Put a 3S battery in it, and away you go. I don't have any maybe I do have a 3S battery. Maybe I'll take this out and run it just for the heck of it. But I have so many other projects that this one just seems to languish. You know, it's put aside. Another cool little one, and God, this one's gone through I don't know how many different motors. I had geared outrunners in here. I had a little Aviox motor in here that's now in my Catamaran. I've had a bunch of different setups on it. I had a straight shaft. I had a flex shaft. And so this was the H&M Hydro and Marine mini shovel nose. This thing was a hoot to drive. It worked really well. I have more turn fin than I need, but so be it. So this was a cool little boat too. It could be resurrected. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. And you could run any turn fin. Just bolt something in there. an old October rudder that I cut down used a fuller strut. It may be hard to find a fuller strut, but you could fill in these holes and put one of those modern little mini struts in it, and you'd be good to go. Another cool little haul. This thing was really quick. So there's a couple of things that are now retired. I actually have a version of this that's running. This was Randy Naylor, Blue Bayou Boat Works, and he did this little mini hydro, and it had a couple of different cowls. You could have this style cowl. He made one that was just a bubble, and then he made a turbine that would go over another style cowl. On mine, I actually used this turbine and just a flat sheet of plastic to go over it. But there you go. And on this guy, I took 1/32 ply, and I made these little laser cut frames for it. I did a straight shaft out of carbon fiber that I reamed to 5 millimeters so I could put bearings in there. And then I'd fill this up with foam, expanding glue, and then when you put the top down, this thing would be solid and stiff as a board. It's got a little twist now, but the top acts as a shear member for that, and once it's all together, it is stiff as a board. Someday I'll show you my running version of this. I still take it out occasionally. And then last is this little guy. Oh, not last, but next is this little guy. I did this all-wood Catamaran, and I made a single, and I actually used the Aviox 1005 motor out of this and put it into here. And the running version, it's real quick. I'm still dialing it in a little bit. It's running a little wet, so I'm playing with strut angles and such. This particular one was set up as a twin, and I was going to leave openings here. You'd have this big opening here for your battery and speed controls, but an opening here that you could get in and access the motors to install and remove the motors. Yeah, it's going to be tight. You're going to have to be getting in here to get the coupler and such, but it would work. A pair of 2030 motors, or you might even be able to get a 2040 in there. The only thing is, the way I made these motor mounts, you've got to use one of the Surpass motors or their clones that do not have a boss for the front bearing. Otherwise, the boss won't fit in there. The wood gets too small. It's flimsy. So it's kind of limited to that. So this thing's kind of languishing because, quite frankly, I have the single running, and it's a hoot enough, and I have other twins in the works. So this thing is another languishing project. Another one I was playing around with was Jay Turner, several decades ago, designed a pool racer, and this pool racer used an '05 car motor and 6 NICADs. Well, things change and such, and so I took his basic design, which was a single-step hydroplane. I kept that, and I said, I'm going to make a lower, his thing was, this tall to hide all this stuff. I'm going to make a lower profile version of that and scale it down so I could have something that would work in today's small pools. The problem I'm having with these things is it's so overpowered, I can't keep them on the water. This is, again, a little 2030 running a 10 amp speed control, and this thing just, it will launch itself. Even with this 2030 that's not very spectacular. So what I did is I built another one. Oh, look, Oric Enterprises. That would be Oric Goldfinger. Anyway, so this one, all ball bearing in here. This one just had, a straight shaft. So this one's pretty cool. Nice carbon fiber turn fin and all that. And look at here. It's got a little, what is it? That's a 1022 motor. It's a tiny little motor, and I made this gearbox for it. And it actually runs pretty good. The problem is finding a propeller gear combination that works. The last time I ran this thing, I got the motor pretty hot. It's a lot cooler, or I've got other motors now that I can test out, and it's easy to drop these things in. They have these little tiny plugs. I'm using this little tiny speed control. Oh yeah, here it is. This little tiny, I think that's a 5 amp speed control, but this thing is just light as a feather. It's all foam covered with silk span, and I use waterproof sanding sealer to attach the silk span, and then just rattle can paint. But this thing actually runs pretty good, and because hydros only turn one direction, I made it asymmetrical. So I've got a non-trip on this side and a bevel on that side. So it's kind of my cool little fun runner, and it works real good. It's just that any wind and such, and these become kites because the whole airplane, the whole boat, all up and running, weighs less than a big speed control. So that's kind of sitting on the side. I may get back to these because these again are seaworthy. All it needs is a battery, a charged battery, and the correct propeller. I've got a few little 26 and 25 and 24 millimeter props I can experiment with. So there you go. The little tiny things. Anyway, that's everything in the past. Why am I talking about this at this time? Well, because when I'm working on projects, my workspace seems to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I'll be taking parts and I'll be sticking them over here in my magnetic dish and such and all this stuff. And eventually, see, here's my workspace. Eventually, all this stuff is going to go back into their appropriate boxes, hardware and receivers and scale stuff and waterproofing and speed controls and bearings and brushless motors and cooling and soldering station and switches and tuners and guitar bridges. It's all there. And then all my paint stuff. So after I've finished with the boat project, or at least come to a conclusion at that point, it's time to clear all this stuff off, clean it all up, sweep out the shop, do all that, and throw some guitars on here. I've got a fret level to do. I need to do that pretty quickly, and I'll do some other work. So the boats for a while are going to take a back seat, but I thought I'd share some of this old stuff that may never, at least I may never run again. Although this one's not bad. I just have other boats like it. Anyway, so there you go. A little update from Dr. Jet. Until next time, Jet out.